Siona God, hello all. Good afternoon. Wado, thank you for watching. Today is like day 19 of Transformation of America, the True Life Story of a CIA Mind Control Slave by Kathy O'Brien with Mark Phillips. And we should be wrapping up chapter 2 in Kathy's part of the book. My television programming was then expanded to include the shows that every Project Monarch mind control slave I knew had to watch. I Dream of Jeannie, The Brady Bunch, Gumby and Pokey, and Bewitched. I could relate to the genie pleasing our master, who was a major for the Air Force. In I Dream of Jeannie, this served to confuse the reality of my own experiences with the fantasy of television production. I told all outsiders that my family was just like the Bradys. Through Gumby and Pokey, I was led to believe that I was as flexible as these animated clay performers. Therefore, I was capable of being physically maneuvered into any sexual position. Okay. The mirrors depicted doorways, I don't know if that's a typo, to other dimensions, and adventures interlocked with my Catholic conditioning and Alice in Wonderland and Wizard of Oz themed programming. In Bewitched, it is the normal next door neighbor that is considered crazy rather than the witches. This is another reversal that was applied to my bizarre existence. I was one of the only kids in my school that listened to country music, but then Senator Byrd, B-Y-R-D, fancied himself a country music fiddler, and it was my duty to love what he did. I was ordered to listen to country music or no music at all. Music was my psychological avenue for escape, a dissociative tool. But this too was used and set in the stage for my future as a Project Monarch presidential model mind control slave. As suggested, I read the Boxcar Children's series over and over again. I empathized with the trials, traumas, and tribulations the children endured while they fended for themselves from the boxcar home along the railroad tracks. My father often made train sounds at me in passing to subconsciously remind me that I was currently in training, TRAIN-ING, on the undeterrable track of the Freedom Train. This term, taken from Harriet Tubman's Underground Railroad for slaves, reversed the meaning of the word freedom to confuse one's one-track mind and instill the belief, I am free to be a slave. There's also reinforcement training to stay on track. The planned track laid out for me, my father would often quip, when God passed out brains, you thought he said trains and got in the wrong line. What? When God passed out brains, you thought he said trains and got in the wrong line. Okay. Convicted capital crime career criminal, country music entertainer, and CIA operative Merle Haggard often used well-documented cryptic language in his songs pertaining to government mind control slave operations. He released songs including Freedom Train and Over the Rainbow. My father told me repeatedly that Merle Haggard was my favorite singer, and his songs reinforced my programming. Of course, Senator Byrd remained my favorite fiddler as ordered. He played train songs like Orange Blossom Special while making train sounds on his fiddle. Sometimes I was his captive audience, bound and gagged while he played his fiddle. Other times he instructed me to spin round and round like a music box dancer in order to add new dimensions to our sex. These new dimensions included more and more physical pain through kinky torture. My father took advantage of his new political connections and advanced himself occupationally manufacturing camshaft auto parts at a local factory. Soon, he was promoted to sales management position due to his connections to the Pentagon Procurement Office and General Services Administration. Coupled with what he had learned about double-bind hypnotic persuasion, he continued to supplement his income by sexually exploiting his children. This now included brazenly prostituting me to Muskegon Coast Guard officials while on cocaine runs to and from the base. Meanwhile, my father took us all to church every Sunday, and my mother stayed busy having babies. Let me see. Continued to supplement by sexually exploiting. Okay. This now included brazenly prostituting me to Muskegon Coast Guard officials while on cocaine runs to and from the base. Meanwhile, my father took us all to church every Sunday, and my mother stayed busy having babies to raise the project. In true pedophile fashion, he surrounded himself with children by coaching little league sports, chaperoning school and catechism activities, and becoming involved with the Boy Scouts. All of this made him appear to be a model citizen and pillar of the community. The illusion was informed. The parts of me that knew otherwise had no choice but to remain silent. So here's some footnotes. Project Monarch slaves were referred to as chosen ones. Torture to the point just before death, such as with Death's Door programming, was jointly used by the Catholic Jesuits and CIA in Project Monarch. Number 3, it was the voices of my mind control programmers and handlers that I later heard guiding me. Number 4, Freedom Train is the intentionally recognized cryptic code term for Project Monarch slave operations that I heard repeatedly throughout my victimization. All right, Chapter 3, my first president. Muskegon, Michigan is a coastal tourist attraction and home of the annual Seaway and Coast Guard festivals, which bring people to the town from all over Michigan. Vanderjagt remained publicly visible through opportunities such as these. My father often could be seen with Vanderjagt and was photographed at his side while judging festival events like the kitty parades, sand sculpturing contests, and so on, all of which I entered and won. In later years, my father polished and shined the red paint of his 1966 Ford convertible to chauffeur Vanderjagt through the local parades. This only served to reinforce the illusion that my father was a pillar of the community. In 1973, Senator Byrd instructed my father to send me to Muskegon Catholic Central High School, which was overseen by the director of St. Francis de Sales Church, Father Lepres, Lepres. The Catholic Church, of course, has its own political structure, with the Pope presiding over all. The strong political ties between the Catholic Church and the U.S. government was overtly evidenced by the much publicized relationship between the President and the Pope during the Reagan administration. Of course, I had been privy to this political relationship ever since my first communion, a relationship that the right to remain silent was intended to cover. My experience with Catholic Central's direct involvement in Project Monarch's physical and psychological conditioning further confirmed the union between the U.S. government and the Catholic Church. When Senator Byrd changed my school from public to parochial, P-A-R-O-C-H-I-A-L, he also destroyed through dissociation my school personality. I no longer viewed school as my haven from abuse, as it was controlled by the church, and as I later learned, monitored by a corrupt segment of the CIA. By the time I enrolled in Catholic Central, the cliques and groups had already been formed. I had a personality to fit in with the good kids and one that interfaced with the bad. It did not take long for the good kids to notice I also got along with the bad. I soon found the only kids that could relate to me were the other known project victims. We clung together in a close-knit group, herded around like the proverbial sheep by those in the school who knew we were MPD/DID'd, and under my control. We even switched personalities as circumstances demanded, most often in unison. We were ritually traumatized, constantly tranced, and then programmed during school hours. Since I no longer had my singular school personality and was constantly switching instead, the compartment on my brain that held school memory was no longer consciously retrievable. Therefore, I had no basis for continued learning aside from what I could photographically memorize from class. My grades appeared erratic, ranging from A's to failing, and some A's received I did not earn academically. In my required religion class, Sister Anne Marie had been leading us in study on the topic of confession. This was to prepare us for the kind of confessions we were going to give Father Vesbit, V-E-S-B-I-T, who was also our school principal. The day after Sister ordered us to confession, I refused to go. I unconsciously feared I would be sexually assaulted again in the confessional, this time while my teenage peers waited impatiently outside the door. Sister made an example out of me in class, saying I was a Satanist and that I was going to hell. With seemingly no escape from the occultism that proliferated at the school, I could no longer differentiate between Catholicism and Satanism. Whatever Senator Byrd's purposes in sending me to Catholic school, no one seemed to notice that I had no reason to religiously adhere to the Catholic principles. Therefore, the applied reversal of Satanism held no spiritual magic to it either. The wedge of anti-superstition that the Catholic school was inadvertently driving into me only served to discount the occult principles and superstitious traumas that they were attempting to use to control me. Satanism is often used as extreme pain, violence, trauma-based, and Project Monarch mind control, reportedly due to the previous German Nazi Himmler research. I did not adhere to the desired helplessness attitude that this was spiritual warfare and out of the realm of mankind's ability to stop. Regardless of my religious beliefs or disbeliefs, I experienced the results just the same. Being subjected to and witnessing trauma so horrible while my body was raped, tortured, and ravaged by men literally drove me out of my mind. All right, till tomorrow, don't go hang and a good shanaske. Till we meet again, love you, mean it.